I'll take roll by voice.
Oh, that's right.
Hardman. Trimble.
Here.
Trevelyan.
Here.
McKinney.
Here.
Hudson.
Present.
We have 5 members present, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ryan, any changes to the agenda?
There are a couple changes tonight. Item 7C, M&W Mini Storage Site Improvement Plan has been removed from the agenda at the request of the applicant. And item 7E, parcel 2020-158, the agenda item is the same, but the actual plat of survey document has been amended from what was originally included in the packet.
Move approval of the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The revised agenda is approved. Item 2 is, and I'll remind anyone that's on the phone for this meeting that if you'd like to address the council at the appropriate time, make sure that you press *6 to unmute yourself. Citizens Forum is a time for anyone in the audience who'd like to address the council on any item that's not part of public hearings or new business.
And just to clarify what the mayor said, it's *6 rather than #6. For some reason, people are used to hitting pound and then something. It's star, not pound. That's the problem that we've had with people trying to join online, is they keep hitting #6 and they can't unmute. *6.
Avoid the hashtag.
Yeah, no #6.
All right, well, welcome. Please share your name and your address.
Hello, hello.
I recognize you even though I can't see most of your face.
You recognize me?
Yes, we talk
That's
about
too bad,
mosquitoes
because I
every
didn't
year.
have
They can't be that bad now.
Huh?
Yeah, there's no mosquitoes now,
All right,
right?
go ahead.
Okay, I think I can do this, can I?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm here to talk about this virus, and
Jan, why don't you
I
give
have
us your
some
name and your
ideas.
address?
Name and address, Jane.
I'm
Jan.
sorry?
Name and
Name and
address.
address, please.
Oh, sorry. Jan Fleming, 1800 Grand Avenue, number 259, West Des Moines, Iowa, 50265.
Great, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Here's what it's like on a day-to-day basis, going into Hy-Vee. A lot of us have our masks up, and then 3 people will brush by you without masks, and you maybe even, touch your coat or something. I mean, they're that close. And we have to do something that if these people don't want to wear masks, that's okay. But somehow they've got to start respecting the people who are and keeping some distance. And I think I'm really here to pick your brains and to see if I can get some other things going. I don't think we have to just put up with this. I don't think we have to just go along with this. And it's going to kill a lot of us if we do. So I'm hoping to get some ideas from you. And let's just take Hy-Vee.
Jan, is this going to take longer than 5 minutes? We typically keep our,
Huh?
is this going to take longer than 5 minutes?
No,
Okay.
No,
thanks.
no.
All right, otherwise we need to postpone it to other
no,
items
no,
or
no,
something.
no,
Okay.
no, I can't fill up 5
Okay,
minutes.
all right.
Okay. And you know what I'm thinking is that with all this power here, I've gotten to know a lot of you and respect a lot of you, that you could do a lot of things. Does anybody have the courage to talk to the manager of Hy-Vee and put his foot down and say, no masks? Or you come in between 5 and 6 a.m. in the morning with people are wearing masks the rest of the day, something. It just seems to me there's something that we could do. And I remember I left, Mayor Garrett, I left you a message and said, why don't you be one of the profiles in Courage and stand up and say to West Des Moines, you wear masks or you stay home. They did. The mayor did it in Iowa City, I believe, and he's still alive, and probably a lot of more people in Iowa City are still alive. And they're talking about, all the experts, that this thing is going to get really, really bad. We're going to have we're going to have the flu and everything. I think we need to get going and take some big steps. And so I'm looking for some new ideas. I'm looking for something that you all can do. I don't have any power. And I will tell you, I was watching MSNBC today, and I listened before and after, and I couldn't quite get his point. But somebody was talking about Iowa and Des Moines, and the whole city of Des Moines being gone with the virus. I think maybe they were just using a number or a size. I don't know. But it scared me. And I thought, it's possible. We need to do some more things. We're not helpless. We're not powerless. I don't know. But can't we do some things like that?
A couple things, Jan. This council has done a proclamation encouraging the use of masks, which is as far legally as we can go. I probably get a couple of these requests each week. The Iowa Attorney General issued a written legal opinion right when this pandemic started that said only the governor can issue a mask mandate, that mayors and city councils in Iowa do not have the legal authority to do that. So the mask mandate that's in place in Des Moines and Iowa City, they have no penalties and it can't be enforced by the police because they don't have the authority to do that. So the only person right now who has that authority would be the governor's office.
Is who?
The governor.
Governor.
So we've recommended, the residents that have reached out to me who feel like there should be a mask mandate, we've suggested that they should share their concerns at the governor's level because she's the only one with the legal authority to do it. So this group here has done as strong a proclamation on encouraging the use of masks as they can legally. As far as talking with Hy-Vee, I know Tom's got a good relationship with some of the folks at Hy-Vee. We can check with them, but we've gone as far as legally we can go when it comes to masks.
Well, I could tell you too, Jan, I could tell you as well. So I represent us on the Polk County Disaster Recovery Planning Committee, and Councilwoman Hardman is on one of the subcommittees that we have, and we are looking at this on a regular basis. They are doing PSAs on wearing masks and how important it is. We had a press conference. I spoke at it, encouraging West Des Moines residents to wear masks, asking them to wear masks. Encouraging our businesses to do everything that they can to put in place best practices to make sure that we are protecting our people as much as possible. Renee was at that press conference and was very supportive as well. And we're just constantly having conversations in that committee as to what we can do to raise awareness. And we just met last week and continue to have those conversations. So we're working it from all angles, and we will continue to do so. We believe up here that it's extremely important. And but when I'm out and about, to be honest with you, and I'm sure you could point to other situations, but I look and I start counting to see how many people are actually wearing masks and how many are not. And I was in Hy-Vee the other day, and I didn't see anybody in the one up here on Mill Civic Parkway that didn't have a mask on. So it seems that most people are complying with it. Most people are doing that. Maybe there are some places where they're not. But to the mayor's point, we don't really have any ability to enforce them wearing masks. We can only encourage, we can do the PSAs, and we will continue to do everything within our power, pass the resolutions, but, and we're open to creative out of the box ideas, but that's about all we can do.
Okay, I just have one more area, and I will go. These rallies, now, without being political, the people that are going to the rallies they're just, okay, they're just throwing it in the face of everybody that it's, and then, when the rally's over, they pile into Hy-Vee and do their grocery shopping after they've been around all these people and carrying it. Can't we do something about the rallies?
Well, there haven't been any rallies in West Des Moines that I'm aware of.
Not recently.
No.
There was the ones for
Well-
George Floyd early on, but if you're talking political rallies, I don't know. I haven't been any
I
political
don't know if
rallies.
you were talking about the President Trump out at the airport. But
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was on federal property. So yeah, but normally if they would do a rally of that size here, they would have to come through and get a permit. But no one's requested any of those yet from us.
So we're powerless.
No, we're not, but we're very limited. We're very limited.
Yeah.
So really, I think your encouragement should be at the governor's office because right now she's the one with that authority. We don't have that.
Jan, one thing we
And
did do was, what was it, a month and a half ago? We had somebody come to us wanting to do a concert down in Railroad Park, down there by the caboose. And we did not feel comfortable in the fact that he would be able to control the social distancing, the masks and all that. So we did not approve that permit for him to do that down there. The activities that are taking place down in Valley Junction with the farmers market are extremely reduced. They're spreading the vendors out. There's not near as many people going down there. We just had a concert this weekend over here at the amphitheater, and we had, the city, enforced the social distancing. There were circles out there that families could be in, and then clear over here was another circle that a family could be in. So we're doing everything we can to prevent it. But like the mayor said, we can't mandate mask wearing.
I'd like to speak to this as well. First of all, Jan, I want to thank you for taking time out of this cold day to come up and speak. This is what citizens need to be doing. We are elected officials. We need to hear your voice. And so I want to thank you for coming out to do this, because this is important. I want to say to you personally, it is important to me about masks. I have spoken on this dais 3 or 4 times about wearing masks, and I will refuse to sit and have a conversation with you close to close if you don't respect me enough to wear a mask. And that's really important, because we have to set the example. And so the mayor is right about our inability to do this major mask mandate. I guess we could do one. I guess it's not enforceable. And some cities are leaning in that direction and have done it. But if someone doesn't, what are you going to do? You can't force it. So you have to do what you need to do to protect yourself and limit your ability around folks that don't have a mask and keeping 6 feet distance. I go to the Hy-Vee and Civics Mill Parkway, and the workers are having on masks. I've seen that. I go there, I'm in there 3 or 4 times a week, and most of the workers now are wearing masks, and Hy-Vee has stations where you can pick up a mask when you walk in. Now, they're not forcing every person that chooses not to, they're not having them arrested or kicked out of the store, but I think at this point it's lobbying the governor to do what that's all you can do, okay? But we know where she stands too, and I'm not trying to get political, but that's going to be very difficult. But you have to protect yourself and do what you can. And again, we're trying to do what we can to minimize the folks coming together, social distancing. Kevin is right. I was at an event at the amphitheater, and they had these big, huge circles, and they were really distanced from each other, and you had to stay within your circle for the most part, and not, and get out of your circle when you're watching the movie. So I do applaud Park and Recs for doing what they can to social distance, but do what you can to protect yourself. It's a serious situation, and just stay safe, and you continue to wear your mask and show the example.
Just one other quick one. I don't know how much, I'm concerned about apartment buildings. I love mine, and I love the people there. But they come home from work and they all pile up 3 flights of stairs without masks, like it's a free zone. And I keep thinking that hallway is just a petri dish. Is there anything you could do to encourage apartments to maybe do some mandating there that, we know Sue, her apartment project, you can't go in her apartment project without a mask, period. Can't go in the door and down the hallway. And that would be such a help.
I think you should talk to your landlord that owns your building. Yep. That would be the person who would have the authority to make some requirements.
Yes.
Not the city, but talk to your landlord, the person that owns your building.
And
Yeah.
you pay rent, you've got a louder voice than we'll have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I will leave. I just heard Dr. Fauci today. Okay. And he was asked, which would you deem most important to prevent this virus? A vaccine or a mask? And he said, the mask. If we could just, okay, Thank you so much.
you.
It's good to
Thank
see
you.
all
Yeah.
of you.
Good to
as
see you,
well.
Jan.
And if you can think of anything I can do, you know where to find me.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else for citizens forum? Okay, we'll go on to mayor, council, city manager reports. Matt, let's start with you.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick updates. We, see, the Bravo board met a couple weeks ago, and I think maybe this came up at FNA. I'm not exactly sure. I don't serve on FNA, but I've said it a couple different times. Things at Bravo have been impacted pretty significantly because of the pandemic and the impact on their revenues. Bravo's also gone through a process whereby they have kind of tried to determine how best to allocate their funding in accordance with their mission. And most recently, we learned that the Historic Valley Junction Foundation may not qualify in future years if their mission doesn't necessarily align with the arts and culture kind of objectives of Bravo. So I participated in a call with Matt at the Valley Junction Historic Foundation, as well as Sally Dix and some others. They are aware of that, and it's going to be very difficult for them to continue operating. And I think we as a council need to keep that into consideration as we look at what happens in that area. And unfortunately, I heard this weekend that Vino 209 down there is closing, and like Jan, I believe that we're going to have it's going to be difficult as the snow starts flying. People can't sit outside at a restaurant, and for these restaurants to continue to operate. So I just want to bring at least the Valley Junction Foundation item to everybody's attention. Second thing is we had our development and planning committee meeting this morning. I thought it was a very good meeting, and I won't get into the details of it, but what I will say is that we continue to see more flexibility within the city, and I think that's a great thing. For example, tonight, item 5C talks about some additional flexibility for the Board of Adjustment on different matters that come before the city. So I think that's a good thing. And I'll also say that we had a MAC committee meeting I think it was last week, and a lot of items were discussed, but in particular, the Polk County Housing Trust Fund spoke, and they spoke about the dire need or the very great need that people have in the community for seeking assistance as it relates to rental assistance. And I'll tell you, I was proud because Russ made some really powerful comments about what this council and what this city has done for purposes of allocating CDBG funds to Department of Human Services. And on that call, it was pointed out that there are several $100,000 that have yet to be accessed in the city of West Des Moines. And so for anybody that's listening or anybody that knows of anybody that needs assistance, know that our city has taken steps to help folks. And there are significant funds that remain in the West Des Moines Human Services, fund or however we describe it. So it was good to hear that. Well, it's unfortunate to hear the need, but good to see that our city's taking steps to help folks. That's all I have at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you. Kevin?
Nothing this time, Your Honor.
Greg?
Yeah, just a quick note. I had the opportunity to attend the Greater Dallas County Development Alliance. They had their annual meeting this week, and not a great deal to report, but it's just important to understand that West Des Moines has certainly expanded well into Dallas County, and considering the nature of Dallas County, West Des Moines, I just wanted to go to the Alliance meeting to continue to build some relationships and also continually remind the leaders of Dallas County that we are a valued partner and, dare I say, a valuable partner in the future of Dallas County and the entire metropolitan area. So it was a good meeting, and I just wanted to say that I represented West Des Moines for the purpose of, for those aforementioned purposes. And that's the end of my report.
All right, Russ?
Yeah, I would just say that we continue to do work on the committee that I talked about, the Polk County Disaster Recovery Committee that I serve on, and the Renee is on one of the subcommittees. We're talking about basic needs and needs of our businesses and how to try to help as much as we can navigate through this global pandemic as we come out of this. You know, we continue to talk about PSAs on wearing masks and doing various things. And as Councilman McKinney talked about, one of those things that was brought up, some of the basic needs, was rent assistance. And I believe we do have a significant amount of funding available from our CDBG allocations for rent assistance for West Des Moines residents who may find themselves struggling. So, but we keep thinking about how we can help the community at large as we navigate through this, and we'll keep doing our work there. And then the F&A committee, subcommittee did meet, and we are continually looking at our budget, especially as it relates to hotel, motel, lost funding. And, you know, we're looking at adjusting based on, and you'll see in a budget amendment in here that, you know, our hotel, motel funds are anticipated to be down quite a bit. And so we're looking at making some adjustments to the allocations that we made. Nothing in regards to any of the outside groups that we provided allocations to. Those will remain the same, but kind of some of the internal city uses that we have for hotel, motel tax. And we're having conversations as to, you know, what things potentially could look like going into next fiscal year. And, you know, do we continue to do those outside allocations? Do we pull those back? Do we not do them at all? We still have some conversations that need to be had. We'll probably be bringing that back to F&A relatively soon. So with that, that concludes my report, Your Honor.
Renee?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I did attend the West Des Moines Human Rights Commission meeting, and those meetings are very energized and just phenomenal citizens that are representing that committee to really try to make sure that that West Des Moines is a welcoming city for all. And so we are going to be electing new officers. Sanjita's tenure is ending. She's done a great job. We also are planning, they are putting together proposals for the Martin Luther King activity, although it might be virtual, but they are not wanting to miss an opportunity to celebrate the life and the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and how we might celebrate that as a city. And they're looking to try to expand involvement from the commission to help out with that. I know that they mentioned reaching out to Catherine Harrington, who I know is with us tonight, to see whether or not there's someone from her organization might serve on the committee for this West Des Moines citywide celebration. I see thumbs up there, so we'll tell them that they can save a phone call if she's in. The next thing is the West Des Moines Library. Just want you to know that everybody's invited tomorrow for the ribbon cutting for the kiosk that's going to be in Valley Junction. It is a mobile kind of kiosk library that makes it accessible for folks in that community. There's a ribbon cutting of that at 5 o'clock tomorrow, 5 to 5:30. So if your schedule allows, stop down and let's celebrate having a mobile kiosk library right there at Valley Junction at 4th Street, 217 5th Street, 4th Street entrance. So I wanted to make sure we promoted that. That concludes my report, Your Honor.
Tom?
No report, Your Honor.
I wanted to mention, and we'll have a formal presentation for this, but 3 days ago, the Government Finance Officers Association sent me a notification that the city's comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30 of 2019 qualifies for the GFOA Certificate of Achievement for the Excellence in Financial Reporting, which is the highest form of recognition in government accounting and finance reporting. So Tim, congratulations to you and your staff, and Tom for that award. And I know they usually send us a plaque or something that we can do a formal presentation, so we will, but I wanted to let everyone know that I did receive that 3 days ago.
Your Honor, if I could, just one more thing I forgot in the report, and I'll be quick. There was a Park and Rec Advisory Board meeting that I attended as well, and there were a number of things that we reviewed there, including alcohol usage policies in our park facilities, and they made a recommendation that'll be coming forward to the council at some point in time. And then, but one thing I wanted to bring up, because you may have heard of this, is our single track trail that we were looking at doing over at Southwoods Park. There were a number of residents that were concerned about the trail, and it was coming close to their homes, some of their homes. And my hat is off to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board as well as our staff, because they listened to the residents, they heard what their concerns were, and they figured out a way to actually have a win-win, and they amended the trail to maybe be a little bit shorter of a trail, but we're going to still be able to have a single-track trail and also have the homeowners relatively happy, or at least not upset. So they found a win-win.
Great. Thank you, Sally, and your team. Item 4 is the consent agenda. Any item that any council member wants to pull? Otherwise, I'd take a motion for all of them.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, all those items are approved. Item 5, old business, 5A, Village on Jordan Creek, southwest corner of Jordan Creek Parkway and Ashworth Road. Establish the Village on Jordan Creek Plan Unit Development, Checkmate LLC. This is an ordinance for the third reading, final adoption, and I believe there was a minor change that was made to this.
Move consideration of third reading.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a few things I wanted to share. For the second reading, I was a lone nay vote, and my concern was with the PUD as it was written. And there's been a couple of happenings over the last couple of, I guess it's been a couple months now since the second reading. And the land, this is the land that's just to the north of Aspen and to the east of 78, the south of Ashworth, and the west of Jordan Creek. And the residents who reached out to me on Aspen and 78th Street, they have quite a few concerns about the future of this particular development, because a lot of them back up to it. The developer did. They shared, they didn't share. The developer had created a site plan for a senior center. And so, Lynn, is it confirmed that the senior center has been withdrawn? Or do we?
That is what staff is hearing, but
Oh, okay.
confirmation.
No official confirmation. So assuming that the senior center as a concept has been withdrawn from the planning, which hasn't been confirmed fully yet, this PUD actually calls for a minimum of 10 feet of trees to be kept. And because there is a small 60-foot wide or so swath of trees and just some, I don't want to use the word forest because it's only 60 feet wide, that is there. I think Councilman Tremble's going to be traipsing here in a little while next
the
week
27th.
to come check it out. And of course, the residents would like to keep as much of that as possible. The PUD as written is calls for keeping a minimum of 10 feet. But my understanding is if there is no PUD at all, then there's a minimum of 0 feet of that forest to be kept. And so while I did vote nay last time, where we are right now when it comes to the future of development, I am supportive of this PUD because at this point it does keep that minimum of 10 feet of trees as well as a guaranteed fence as more of a buffer between the residents who are on the south side on Aspen and whatever this future development is. And when it came to the senior center site plan, I know that they were willing to put in a berm and they were willing to put in more trees and bushes and different plantings on that berm that was above and beyond what the city code required. And so I was grateful to hear that they were willing to do that. Having said that, the residents of the area still have many concerns, and what I'd like to encourage development services is to use this PUD as a starting point, almost a minimum, because that the residents on Aspen care deeply about that 60-foot wide forest. I'll keep using that word because why not? And so if we don't pass this tonight, then there's no guarantee of the 10-foot. So at that point, I am supportive of passing it tonight, so I will not be the nay vote on this particular thing. But I did want to just encourage development services to take another look at this to see if we can save even a little bit more of that and just confirm that whatever development is there. And again, I do wanted to express some thanks to both the residents who reached out, but also the developer, because they were willing to go a little bit above and beyond with a berm and extra growth. So I just want to reinforce that I think that working together as a city, working together as residents and working together the village on Jordan Creek. I think all of us can work together to make a really, really quality development that is a win-win-win for everyone. So given that, I just wanted to share my thoughts
Thank you.
on that.
All right.
I would say I'm going to be out there October 27th to take a look, and meet with the residents and go look at the trees and see what they look like. And, you know, I think I probably speak for all of us when I say we want to keep as many trees as we possibly can in all of the development that occurs around West Des Moines. And, you know, I think some of the trees, from what I understand, and I'm not an expert, they may not be the greatest quality of tree that's out there. I think some may be replanted by a developer that eventually develops the area, and if they come in, we will continue to push for that. But yeah, I mean, I'm all for keeping as much of those trees as we possibly can. Of course, knowing we've got to have grading and all kinds of different things that are done there. I think we can work with staff to try to get that done.
But if we can start tonight by guaranteeing that 10 feet
Yeah.
plus the fence,
Yeah, at least you have 10
that's a good
feet.
starting point.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, the council communication indicates that by adopting it, you restrict the development to what the PUD says, and if they want to change anything, they got to go back through the whole public hearing process. So I think, you know, I think Greg's right. We're better off locking this in tonight the way it is, and then dealing. And I can assure you, because I represent or work for a developer, and other developers want to keep trees. They're all valuable. So the last thing anybody wants to do is go in and cut down trees that they don't have to. But a lot of times you got site issues that you can't develop without doing it. But I can promise you, it's the same way with the city. I mean, we've removed tons of trees putting in roads. It's not that we like to. So everybody wants to save trees. So I don't want anybody to feel like, you know, we're picking on anybody, that somebody enjoys going in and cutting them all down because they got to replace them. And so they're valuable. So with that, everyone in favor of the third reading, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, Ryan?
5 yes, an ordinance amending the official zoning map in the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019 by amending Title IX zoning, Chapter 9, Plan Unit Development District pertaining to PUD district regulations and guidelines.
Move approval of the third reading.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
And that's third reading in final form, right? Yep.
Any abstentions? Okay, passes. Item 5B, Des Moines University, 8025 Grand Avenue, amend the West Grand Business Park Plan Unit Development Parcel 8 to allow installation of private utilities along with approval of a phased site plan and establish regulations for signage during construction. Des Moines University Osteopathic Medical Center, this is an ordinance for the second reading, third reading, and final adoption, and there are no changes from the first reading.
Move consideration of second reading.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
I, as trustee of Des Moines University, I will need to abstain from this vote.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll show Renee abstaining. Ryan?
4 yes, 1 abstention. An ordinance amending the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019, and ordinance numbers 1373, 1812, 2299, 2359, and 2360 pertaining to Plan Unit Development District regulations and guidelines.
Move approval of the second reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? And we'll show Renee abstaining.
Move waiver of the third reading and adoption in final form.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll show Renee abstaining as well. Okay, item 5C, amendment to City Code Title II, Boards and Commissions, Chapter 2, Board of Adjustment, repeal and replace Section 4 jurisdiction powers to add provisions to allow for zoning exceptions and to clarify the requirements for a variance request. City initiated this also as an ordinance for the second, third reading. Final adoption, there are no changes from the first reading.
Move consideration of second reading.
Second.
Questions or comments? Right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, Ryan?
5 yes, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019 by amending Title II, Boards and Commissions, Chapter 2, Board of Adjustment, Section 4, Jurisdiction Powers, to add provisions to allow for zoning exceptions and to clarify requirements for a variance request.
Move approval of second reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
Okay, move waiver of the third reading and adoption in final form.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that's approved. Item 6, public hearings. We have a number of them tonight. Item 6A, This is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Bridgewood northeast and southeast corners of 81st Street and Bridgewood Boulevard, amend plan unit development setback requirements initiated by Bridgewood Association, Inc. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
October 2nd, 2020, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
The Planning and Zoning Commission, by a vote of 6 yes, 1 was absent, adopted a resolution recommending approval of the PUD amendment.
Okay, now would be the time for anyone in the audience that wants to address the council to do so. I'm going to first start with anyone physically present in the council chambers. Okay, seeing no one, is there anyone on the phone that wants to address the council on item 6A? Okay, hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. There's no outstanding issues, and this is simply to accommodate current as-built conditions with the housing units that are actually in that development.
Approval of,
Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead, Russ.
Move consideration of the first reading.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, Ryan?
5 yes, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019, and ordinance numbers 1276, 1322, 1335, 1401, 1438, 1482, 1628, 1748, 1809, 1962, 1998, 2198, 2219, 2220, 2331, and 2361 pertaining to plan unit development, district regulations, and guidelines.
Move approval of the first reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the first reading is approved. Item 6B, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider amendment to City Code Title IX zoning, Chapter 7 setback and bulk density regulations. Modify when the average front yard setback requirement is applied, initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
October 3rd, 2020, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
The Planning and Zoning Commission, by a vote of 6 yes, 1 was absent, adopted a resolution recommending approval of the ordinance amendment.
Okay, now would be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on item 6B. And again, I'll start with anyone physically present in the council chambers. All right, seeing no one, is there anyone on the phone that would like to address the council on item 6B? All right, hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And again, this is an ordinance for the first reading, and the recommended language to be added to the code is to exclude application of the average front yard provisions when structures on adjacent lots are 75 feet or greater from a proposed improvement. I think this falls into the category that Matt mentioned tonight about giving more flexibility, especially in light of the fact that it shouldn't adversely impact your your neighbors when you're that far from them. So with that, it also came through Development and Planning Council Subcommittee. So someone want to
I
move?
would move consideration of the first reading, but I'm going to have some questions here.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, questions, Russ?
My question is, I tried to read through this and completely understand it, and I'm a little bit lost. So Lynn, can you explain to me exactly what we're doing here in layman's terms? Like what the situation is that we're
Yeah,
addressing?
I can. Unfortunately, I can't put the illustration on the docket camera here. What we have in attachment A of your staff report kind of illustrates the situation that we keep running into. The way city code is today is if your house has been built farther back than your neighbors or along that street, so you may have a 35-foot setback, but everybody built at about that 50 to 60 range, we take a look at that setback of the three houses. So say the middle guy wants to do an addition towards the street. We take a look at what his house is today, we take a look at what each of the houses are on either side, and we average that setback that they're all providing today to determine how close he can come to that street with his addition. So that was applied it didn't matter where you were, it didn't matter how far apart you were from your neighbor, it was just, that was the case. If you set back farther than the setback, that's what you ran into. What this one does is actually says, if that addition that you want to do is more than 75 feet away from the two neighbors on either side, we're not going to apply the average front yard setback. City code setback still would apply, but just not that average front yard setback. Oftentimes, that average is still greater than what city code could allow you to do.
How's the 75 feet measured? Is it from house to house? Is it from
It's from the adjoining
Outline.
house, the closest point of the adjoining house on either side to the addition that's being put onto the building.
Okay, if that's farther than 75 feet, then you don't have to adhere
Right.
to
Right,
the average setback that you guys were applying before.
correct.
Lynn, is that sidewall or is that overhang?
I would take it from the overhang.
That's what
I
I
would take
presumed.
it from the extreme of both structures and say that that has to be the 75 feet. So in this illustration, you can see on the first one on the left-hand side, the house on the left is only 40 feet away. So we would say, nope, you cannot do that. You have to follow the average front yard setback. However, on the illustration on the right, if that person shifted his addition over towards the other end of the house, he now has that 75 feet away. We would take away that average front yard setback regulation.
I love the idea of this flexibility. How common does this come up?
The average front yard setback, we have several areas of town. Ashworth is a key example, that Ashworth Woodland area where a lot of the houses were set back farther. It just is what they did at the time. We have a lot of our state lots where they are set back farther, and that's where we're running it to the most often. We do have a few infill spots where this would apply that you're just not going to be able to get around that 75-foot aspect. So the smaller lots, they really don't benefit from this ordinance change as much as maybe the larger lots do, or the older parts of town where you may have the long ranch house that pushes things apart.
I assume the only push, sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
What drove this change?
A request really to add on to the front of a house that we couldn't do even though the neighbors were both about 200 feet away.
Yeah, as a member of Development and Planning with Councilman McKinney, I think the staff did a marvelous job of really trying to share with us what the current situation was and how restrictive it is for a more expansive scenario. And so I just think that it just requires that we show some flexibility when we can, and it doesn't have a major impact. I learned a lot just from this one situation. I was like, what? I learned so much. But what I really liked was that there was some flexibility in this situation that I think is really needed. People are really wanting to do different things now. This COVID has really shed light on a lot of what people want to do to really stay in their homes and to expand where they can get out more and do more right in the confines of their homes and whatever. And so I think we have to evolve with the times. And I want to thank Development Services for all the work that they put into this. And this has been very well vetted out by Councilman McKinney and myself.
Thank you. I just want to echo that for a second, Mayor. This has been something that's been, I think, kind of worked through since maybe August timeframe. And this, along with another piece, we had just one example. I know there were multiple examples brought forward, but we had people that wanted to do an addition. Both neighbors, the HOA itself, everybody was saying, let's do it. And the city said, no, you can't. And the reason being wasn't because of anything about traffic or sight lines. It was just because we had an arbitrary provision in our ordinance. So thank you, Lynn, and the folks on your team. Dick, I know we've talked about it a couple times, and Jessica as well. So I think this is really a good way to move forward, provide flexibility in certain circumstances.
I like this. I appreciate the flexibility. I think it's a good thing. I'm hoping that we're not going to have some kind of unintended consequence from it. In the case that you're talking about, where both people on both sides are fine with it, that helps. I almost think maybe we ought to keep that as part of it, just because the only time I could see us getting into trouble with this thing is if somebody goes to do an addition, they're 76 feet away from the person next door to them, and they're putting an addition that blocks the view of something. In this case that you got up here, it blocks the view of the street, so big deal. But if it happens to block the view of a lake, a pond, we might start having some issues there. But I'm going to be supportive of this tonight because I'm just not sure that hypothetical I just gave is really going to come into play. If it does, we'll revisit it, I guess.
And we thought, we considered having the neighbors sign off. The problem you have is you can have a neighbor that says
Doesn't
no,
like-
just out of spite.
Right, they
Right.
don't like
Not
each
really
other.
because there's
Yeah.
an issue.
Neighbors don't always get along.
Exactly.
Right.
So
Right.
that's why we did go where we went. Like I said, we may.
Okay.
I think
we
this
may
is
No
the
want
way
to
we
matter,
want
take
no
it.
matter what we do on this dais, there's always going to be some hypothetical that might come down the road that we didn't anticipate.
It's going to do a lot
know,
more good than it's going to do
so
harm, probably.
That's right.
There's just going to be a lot of that.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Lynn. All in favor of the first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, Ryan?
5 yes, an ordinance to amend the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019 by amending Title IX zoning, Chapter 7 setback and bulk density regulations, Section 4 setback and density regulations to modify when the average front yard setback requirement is applied.
Move approval of the first reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the first reading's approved. Item 6C, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider amendment number 4 to the Ashworth Corridor Urban Renewal Area initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
October 9th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the city council on item 6C. And again, I'll start with anyone physically present in the council chambers. Okay, seeing no one, is there anyone on the phone that would like to address the council on item 6C? Okay, hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. It's a resolution to approve the urban renewal plan amendment, and there are no outstanding issues.
Move approval.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item is approved. Item 6D. This is the time and place for a public hearing to consider agreement for private development upper story housing program initiated by Taxum LLC. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
October 9th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on item 6D. And again, I'll start with anybody physically present in the council chambers. Okay. Seeing no one, is there anyone on the phone that would like to address the council on item 6D?
It's star 6 to unmute.
Okay. Hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. And the communication says there's no outstanding issues, and this came through Finance and Administration Subcommittee as well.
Move approval of the development agreement.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments by the council?
I'd just say it's going to be a great project, can provide more affordable housing in our city, and going to be a nice, I believe, retail down below, and I'm just happy to approve this project.
Okay, all in favor of approval of the agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, the agreement is approved 4-1. Item 6E, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the 2019-2020 fiscal year Community Development Block Grant Program Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
October 9th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the city council on item 6E. And again, I'll start with anybody physically present in the council chambers. Okay, seeing no one, is there anyone on the phone that would like to address the council on item 6E? Okay, hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. It's a resolution to approve the report.
Move approval of the report.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I just want to thank Christine Gordon for all her hard work on this program and all that we've accomplished under it. I think that if you look at it, the Wi-Fi, I think, had a slow start, but I think we've worked hard to get that deployed and get people signed up. And of course, now we're doubling down with our efforts to put in the conduit across the city and make sure we have affordable, high-speed broadband for everybody, regardless of their income. And I'm just proud of all that we're doing with these CDBG funds.
I'd like to echo that as well. I really thoroughly enjoyed reading this particular item on the agenda because it really does set forth what the city is doing to address the various needs that are going on in the community. And again, with COVID and all that we're doing to make headway on trying to deal with this digital divide or this digital equity issue, I think West Des Moines is kind of leading the pack. and really making a difference where it counts. So very pleased to serve a city that utilizes these kinds of programs that help many citizens in our city.
I agree. I have 30% of my students at Valley are online, and anytime we can take advantage of HUD grants like this that can make a difference for our citizens, it makes such a difference. And so I'm really, really happy to read over this report, and it's just an absolute wonderful job that the city staff has done.
Yeah, the other important thing that we haven't noted here is that the transit passes that we provide for our human service individuals to help them get to work or doctor's appointments, and that's really crucial. So we've really used this money wisely and continue to do so into the future, and just appreciate Christine and all the work that she does on this program and her staff, so.
I don't know if Christine's on the phone or not, but I'm just curious, whatever happened to the Wi-Fi pilot program? Because the goal was 150 and we've got 0. That doesn't sit well with me.
Christine Gordon, I am on the line. The report says 0 because the program is not complete. Until the full installation is done, HUD does not want us to report any numbers. So the system is up and running. We've also done the point-to-point in people's homes. That is up and going, but they just don't want complete numbers until the full build out is complete.
And the point-to-point, that's down at the Phoenix Apartments, correct?
That's where the hub is located, but we have money in partnership with Microsoft to install Light Up Your House, whether it be owner occupied or renter, in 120 homes. We actually have not had full utilization of that. So there's still room that somebody could sign up for that program and get free internet for 3 years.
Okay, but we're not willing or we're not ready to say how many have.
I've got 80 signed up right now, but I still have slots available.
Okay.
When I believe we're talking in the future too, and we haven't made this decision quite yet, but potentially using some of the CDBG funds to help with reducing the cost of providing high-speed broadband in the future as well, so,
That was part of our conversation on the fiber network
yeah.
program.
Right, but this is a separate issue. That Wi-Fi down there in Valley Junction area is, I don't think it works. I mean, it works if you're sitting out on the street, but I think it's a pretty safe bet that nobody was on the internet today down there.
Well,
I think anybody's gonna be sitting out on the street, on Fifth Street, running their computer. So I just struggle with where that's at. I think it's just way too long coming.
Yep, there's been multi-parts to the project for that reason, because there's multiple needs. Again, we've offered the external Wi-Fi, and that is what's still being built out. It's available in certain parts of the neighborhood, but not everywhere. We're still working on that. The second option is the point-to-point where we light up a person's house. And that's been extremely effective. We did a survey and we got extremely wonderful responses. People have said that service works better for them than some of the other private companies they've used before. So we've had very good reception from people using the service.
Okay.
All right, all in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that item is approved. 6F, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the conveyance of underground electric easement to Mid-American Energy Company, Raccoon River Lift Station, initiated by the city of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
October 14th, 2020 in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the city council on item 6F? And again, I'll start with anybody physically present in the council chambers. Seeing no one, is there anyone on the phone that would like to address the city council on item 6F? Okay, hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. This is a resolution to approve the conveyance of the property.
Move approval.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? That item is approved. Item 6G, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the 2020-21 fiscal year operating and capital budget amendment number 1 initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
October 2nd, 2020, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the City Council on item 6G, and I'll start again with anyone physically present in the council chambers. Okay, seeing no one, is there anyone on the phone that would like to address the council on item 6G? Okay, hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. This is a resolution to approve a budget amendment number 1, and this came through Finance and Administration Council Committee.
Move approval of budget amendment number 1.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I would just say this looks like an awful lot if you're reading through it. I'm never, it never ceases to amaze me what cities have to do compared to the state. You know, we pass a state budget, and there are certainly changes in revenues and expenditures throughout the year. Sometimes we don't spend all the money, and we have reversions and whatnot, but every time that we have changes in either revenues or expenditures at the city level, we've got to do budget amendments for every single item. And that's why you're seeing this. The majority of these things are projects that were delayed due to COVID or other reasons. They weren't able to get done, and so we're carrying them forward into the next fiscal year, the fiscal year that we're sitting in now, fiscal year 21. There are some adjustments too to the revenues. We talked about hotel motel tax going down considerably. That's reflected in here, as well as a number of other items. But most of it is carrying things forward that didn't get done in the previous fiscal year. So,
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The budget amendment is approved. Item 6H, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the Raccoon River Basin Segment 5 gravity sewer initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
October 9th, 2020, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the City Council on item 6H. And again, I'll start with anyone physically present in the council chambers. Okay, seeing no one, is there anyone on the phone that would like to address the council on item 6H? Hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Again, we have 2 resolutions and a motion which we can take together, and there are no outstanding issues.
Move for approval.
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item is approved. Item 6I, this is the time and place for a public hearing to consider Valley View Aquatic Center 3-meter diving platform initiated by the City of West Des Moines. Ryan, would you please read the date the notice was published?
October 9th, 2020, in the Des Moines Register.
Have you received any written comments?
None, Your Honor.
All right, now would be the time for anyone in the audience that would like to address the City Council on item 6I. And again, I'll start with anyone physically present in the council chambers. All right, seeing no one, is there anyone on the phone that would like to address the City Council on item 6I? Okay, hearing no one, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Again, we have 2 resolutions and a motion which we can take together.
I actually have a question first. I've got some questions I'd like to have answered, and I'd like to look into this a little bit more. Is this really time sensitive that we pass this now, or could we defer and bring this back at the next council meeting for approval? If it's time sensitive, then I'll just ask all my questions now, and I won't be able to do some of the research I wanted to do on this. But
Sally Ortiz, Director of Parks and Recreation. I guess the time-sensitive nature would be we may lose 2 weeks of possible construction time.
okay.
But, you know, with the weather the way it is, we may not have had that anyway, so.
All right, well, I'll just ask my questions now, I guess, then. I guess, and I may have missed the Park and Rec Advisory Board meeting that, where we discussed this, but what's the demand on something like this? I know this is unique and special because, you know, Ames has one and Ankeny has one, and we will be only the 3rd community in the metro that has this, but, you know, other than Matt getting up there to do like a triple Lindy off the top, how many people are going to be using? I mean, is this like, do we have a diving team in the metro that's asked for this, or what's the demand on this? Why do this project?
Well, actually, I mean, an average person could use this piece of equipment. Ankeny has one, and they have a long line of people of all ages waiting
Okay.
to use their diving platform. With Valley View getting some age on it, we're just looking for things that we can add to the
Okay.
existing footprint and not have to spend, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to improve that facility. That can kind of
Okay, so it's
bring
just
another
kinda-
draw.
It's keeping it new and fresh
Yep.
and mixing it up and keeping people interested in the aquatic centers and
Right.
stuff like that.
Is there a diving platform out there now?
There's a 1 meter diving board. And that's the only diving board we have there.
Have we had people ask for a 3-meter platform, or do we just think because Ankeny's got a big demand that we need one too?
We've had people ask, but, I don't have a number of requests for it. It's one of those things that has come up in the past, and we're just looking for ways to, freshen up our facilities.
Can I ask, so the budgeted amount here, how much of that is for this diving platform? I mean, it seems like a large amount for the platform. Is there something else? I mean, I know it talks about some other, maybe an umbrella or, I don't know, a couple other things that are in there, but what's what are
Well,
we looking at for the investment here?
in addition to the new platform itself, we do have to move a couple of the other things to create the space needed for it. Everything in an aquatic center has to have certain distances between, for entering and exiting, and so it does involve moving the existing diving board.
Just seems like a lot of money for it.
Was this not vetted through Park and Recs already? Roger,
No,
you sit on
I'm sure,
that, so.
no, I'm
Yeah.
sure it went through. I've missed a meeting, I'm sure, that this came
Yeah,
through.
it is part of our budget.
Yeah.
This isn't an unbudgeted request.
And this is CIP funds, so we've issued bonds, and we've got the bond proceeds, and this was budgeted in there, and we're gonna use the money for this purpose.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's money that's already earmarked for this park.
Was this particular, the platform, was this one that you've been thinking about for a little while? I mean, have you been thinking about this being kind of the next thing for Valley View 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 10 months ago? Or is this
Yes,
Okay.
it's been
part
over
of
a year
long-
ago.
longer plan? Yeah,
It was included in our budget request for FY 2021.
okay.
I'm gonna ask at this time, we defer on this and bring it back to the next council meeting, so we can look further into this, do some more research, and before we consider whether we're gonna vote yea or nay on this.
Is that your motion?
So I'd move to defer on this item and bring it back in 2 weeks.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I oppose.
You're opposed?
I feel that she's ready to move forward and has put forth a recommendation and the money is set aside for it, so I'm going to say I'm supporting her
Well,
moving forward.
And we may all support it moving forward. I think we just try and take a time out to do some more research.
I'm voting yes tonight, so.
Okay.
Okay, so on a 4-1 vote, it's deferred for 2 weeks. I guess let's make sure that whatever questions you have, let's get them
Yep.
out quick so we have a chance to get them researched and we're not waiting until the last minute.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I apologize.
this is a fair process to.
I apologize.
But
Then-
we'll look at it. in 2
Yeah,
weeks.
and then I guess, Tom, we'll leave it up to you if you want to bring it through a committee. You don't have to, but if you do, it's,
It'd be better to get the questions sooner.
Yeah. Yep. Nope, we'll delve into it right away.
Everyone else.
Okay, item 7, new business. Item 7A, Eric's Bike Shop, 950 First Street. Construction of a 7,500 square foot retail bike store, EBS Property, Iowa LLC. It's a resolution to approve the site plan. And the condition of approval was amended at P&Z requiring the signed easement documents to be submitted to the Waterworks Department before any building permit can be issued for the site. That was the one amendment.
Okay. I move approval of the site plan with the amendment.
Second.
Questions or comments?
Just a question. This is going to have a shared parking lot with Val Lane's bowling alley is the way I'm looking at it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item passes. 7B, Des Moines University 8025 Grand Avenue Phase Site Plan Approval to allow for private utility installation. Des Moines University Osteopathic Medical Center. It's a resolution to approve the site plan, and there's a number of conditions that that have been amended since planning and zoning. Those are listed on item 2. So I guess I'd ask for a motion to approve it subject to those amendments.
Move. Second.
Any other questions or comments?
I will abstain from the vote
Okay.
for this reason.
Okay, all in favor of approving the site plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll show Renee abstaining. So the site plan is approved. Item 7C, the council's being asked to defer that item.
Move deferral.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item is deferred. Item 7D, Panera Bread, 6740 University Avenue, approval of modifications to site and building to accommodate implementation of a drive-through SLB Real Estate Investors LC. This is a resolution to approve the minor modification. There are no outstanding issues.
Move approval of the minor.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, let's just say this started off as part of the whole COVID thing and allowing some of our businesses to be able to have more flexibility during a time where people can't be,
Right.
inside. And so
Absolutely.
another great example of, the city coming to a solution to allow business to continue to operate.
Right.
Absolutely.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that item passes. Item 7E, parcel 2020-158, 3330 Westtown Parkway, create one parcel for transfer of ownership and one parcel for right-of-way, Shops at Valley West LLC. It's a resolution to approve and release the Plata survey. You have on the dais tonight a updated communication from the Planning and Development Subcommittee meeting this morning that a discussion was had with the ownership, and they're going to reconfigure the proposed Plata survey to increase the southern lot line so that they get the minimum 300 foot of frontage required by the city code for the sign that they're asking for. So that's one change.
I might, Mr. Mayor, could I?
What's that?
I'm sorry. Could I interrupt you on, there are also on this easement condition of approval, I would note that after this was written, it was noted that we did approve, or the city approved some years ago, a couple years ago in our policy, that if we're asking for right-of-way within established portions of the city, that we can take that by easement as opposed to fee title, given the fact that it's an established area, there's usually mortgages on the property. We basically get pretty much the same thing that we want as long as the applicant is in approval with signing the easement. So from the policy point of view, there would be no objection if we took this by easement as opposed to fee title.
Okay, so the additional 20 feet of right-of-way along Westtown Parkway would be subject to being taken by an easement, I guess, Dick, subject to the easement language being acceptable both to the city and to the property owner.
Yes, sir.
And actually, I would like to speak to that. I think the smartest thing to do would be to move this with an irrevocable offer of right-of-way dedication, and that way they will continue to have that property available to them. And at the time, if there's a time that we need to get into the right-of-way there, then they would have to dedicate it to us at that point in time. There may not be a time where we need that. We may not widen the road, but I think that a smart compromise between having it deeded over and having an easement would be to have that irrevocable offer of right-of-way dedication.
I guess what makes me uncomfortable about that is we have a policy, and the policy would allow it by easement. The city can write the easement to have whatever uses the city wants.
Actually,
So what's
there's a policy in place that says that we will receive the land by deed unless we waive that requirement, and we'd have to waive that requirement to be able to get it by easement.
We updated that a number of years ago, and it started at 60th and Ashworth with the Come and Go expansion. It happened on Vista Drive. It happened on down at 8th and Ashworth. We have a specific policy, because I was involved in that says if you're in a fully developed area, that we can take the additional right-of-way by easement, subject to the city writing in the uses that they want within the easement. So that that new policy superseded the prior one because we ran into multiple cases where this same issue came up. And Dick
Okay.
just mentioned it.
That's not my recollection.
Well, Dick,
Can
you took,
staff clarify this? I don't know. My recollection is we have something in city code that basically says that in these situations, we will have the land by deed and if, unless we waive that requirement. And I don't think there's anything in here tonight for us to waive that requirement, and that's what city code has. So we'd either have to amend city code or waive that requirement to be able to do what we want to do tonight. And I think that the best compromise is to do it by irrevocable dedication of right-of-way.
But Congressman,
Don't demote me, don't demote me.
Councilman, you're correct about what the city code says, but the policy that we passed a couple of years ago was to be read in conjunction with that. That gives the latitude to the council to take it by easement in those established areas. It's not a requirement, but it
Okay.
allows you that discretion.
So let me ask you a question then. If we have it by easement, and let's say that we need to get in the right-of-way to do something, who has to pay then, and we need to move some of the utilities that are in there, who has to pay for the utilities to be moved? Is that the taxpayer or is that the developer?
That would be determined by who.
Or I'm sorry,
Who
is that
owns
the
it?
taxpayer or is that the utility?
That would be, well, if the utility wanted to move that, they'd have
No,
to pay.
if we needed
He
them
wanted
to
to
move
move
their
Oh.
utilities because we were doing something, say putting in, I don't know, a conduit.
It would depend on how that easement was written.
that's what
Okay,
I'm saying. You can
okay.
write this easement to do everything that
Okay.
you want to as if you have it for deed.
Okay, as long as we can write the easement to be able to do everything that we need to do, and that we are not going to have a situation where something comes back on the taxpayer as a result, then I'm fine with it. But I guess we would rely on you, Dick, to write this easement in such a way that we can do that. If we need to widen the street someday, if we need to get in there and lay conduit, if doing so results in us having to have one of the utilities moved, I don't want to have us be paying that cost.
No, and those easements are, we always write them to the benefit of the city, not unfairly to the developer, but
Okay.
the developer would have.
Well, I'm comfortable then if that's the way we can do it.
Okay.
Lynn?
Okay, if easement's been agreed upon, in this resolution, I just want to point out that we will be changing this resolution just slightly. Right now, it speaks to creating two parcels. That was under the idea that they would be deeding us that second parcel. So the resolution will be changed to that it's only platting one parcel. And with the change that happened in light of this morning's subcommittee meeting to get that 300 feet of frontage, the acreage will change to 2.93 instead of 2.92 in the ordinance, or in the resolution as it's stated. So we will update that for Ryan and then have that one signed. Just wanted to clarify that for the record.
Is this ever going to be an issue, or I suppose the issue would be that we can't agree on how we write the terms of the easement and the city's use, and then we just don't go forward in this manner? You know what I'm
Right,
saying? If
well,
we can't come to agreement, then what happens?
Well, it's to the benefit of the city. It's that the developer has to be in agreement with what we provide to them, and it's the council's ultimate decision.
Ultimately,
Okay.
Russ, if they don't agree to it, then you get it by deed.
Right.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure of. Because what we're doing now is going to be the precedent all over the city, and it sounds like maybe it already is.
Done that
That's
before.
not my
We've done it.
understanding, but
We've done it
I know
at
we've done it
least 3
before.
times.
I know we've done it before, I'm just not sure that it's the,
It was pointed out when we passed this policy that there's mortgages on these properties, and therefore, if we took it by fee, you know, we'd have to notify the mortgage company, or the developer would have to notify the mortgage company. Mr. Harmeyer pointed out today that when they sell a parcel, it's usually based upon the square footage or the size.
Okay.
And so that would reduce it. So there were good reasons as to why to allow
The other-
Okay,
this.
so-
The other reason behind that, though, because I was involved in it, was you had existing structures, so you created non-conforming setbacks. It was a nightmare for the existing property owner to have that and put on them after the fact, when you can accomplish the same thing with an easement, but you don't create all those other issues.
Can we write in there that basically nobody can do anything in that right-of-way unless they get approval from the city? And I ask that because we've got a number of locations in the city where the right-of-way is jammed up with utilities all over the place and people just laying their utilities down. And as a result, now we have embarked upon this laying conduit all over the place to be able to help with that situation and have almost shovel-ready for high-speed broadband. And the more we do this across the city, the less we're going to have control over all these easements, and people can put whatever they want in there, right? Unless every time we do this, we put in there that if somebody wants to get into that easement, they've got to contact the city and get approval first.
Well, we would treat this just like we would a normal right-of-way, where if you could do right-of-way that we owned, we allow public utilities in there, we allow sewers usually, they're usually our
But if
sewers.
we own it, then we work with them on where they're going to put their stuff, right? But if we don't own it, then we can't control where we'll lay the utilities.
There could be private utilities outside of what we want in there that if we don't prohibit that the developer could say, well, yeah, as long as it's not prohibited by that easement document, we can allow
Okay.
this, if that's what you're talking about.
Look,
But-
I want this development to be a success. I don't want to create some kind of an undue burden on the developer. I think the developer's a great guy, he's got a great company. I think this is a great project coming in here. I just know that what we're doing now is going to be precedent from this day forward throughout the city entirely. And so if we're going to start taking everything by easement, and we're going to have some situations with that rather than deed, and we're not going to be able to control where people are putting utilities, and we're trying to run our own conduit, I mean, are we going to lose control of our own right-of-way?
Well, our policy is that this is only in established areas where there's already buildings and structures. So in a new part of town, the presumption is that we would take that by fee, that they'd actually give that to us as opposed to, as they're developing the property, as opposed to already being developed.
But yet in the new part of town, that's not where there are issues with the right-of-way. It's in the old part of town that there are issues with the right-of-way, and
Well,
we're
if
trying
we
to
can get
figure
the
out.
developer to agree, we could put that in, that, no other utilities or other improvements, or whatever we want to call them, can be relocated in this easement without the approval of the city. Now, if they're okay with that,
I'm not going to belabor it anymore. I'm just going to rely on you to make sure that you negotiate something that makes sense and that that's going to make sense going forward, because this is going to be the new precedent going
Now,
forward.
we've done it
so.
3 times that I can remember, so this is the 4th time I can remember. That's why I brought it up. So I've given you the other 3 examples I can recall.
What are the other
60th
three?
and Ashworth, when the Come and Go expanded.
Okay,
Along Vista Drive, where Iowa student loan buildings are occurred. And
Okay.
then I think we did something down there at Lodge of Ashworth at 8th and Ashworth.
okay.
so I get your point is
I just don't want to get us in a bind going forward. Everybody's going to come in and ask for the same thing now going forward. So we better just write this thing locked tight.
Yeah, Russ, but I want you to create the image that this is brand new. This happened years ago. It took us 8 years to get that policy adopted, so it's not like we haven't given this a lot of thought.
But yet we've got something in code that says to the contrary. And so I guess we might want to bring that city ordinance and strike that out so we don't have to waive it.
Well, again, there's in conjunction with each other, so it gives the ultimate decision to the council to say we can either take it in fee, or in these situations, we can take it.
Except for that, what developer is ever going to deed it over to the city if we can just do it by easement?
Well, there are certain limitations to use of that land once it's encumbered with a roadway and other things. So, there's not a lot that the developer can be using that for.
And what happens if we put a roadway? What happens if we need to widen Westtown Parkway there? What happens then? Do
Well,
they
this
come
is
in
a
and say?
roadway easement, so it would allow us to do that.
Roadway
and-
easement.
And use it as it would, we could have.
Just like a
condos.
right-of-way.
But then who has liability if something happens? If there's a car accident on that section of road or anything like that, who gets sued? Is that the city or the developer?
Well, it would be the way the easements are, the way we write our easements is it's usually, everybody's got negligence in proportion to they've got liability in proportion to their negligence. So we would
Okay.
probably be sued if we had a defective roadway out there. There's other qualifications.
But they could too. They could too.
They could too, right, but we identify each other, everybody identifies each other
Okay.
based upon the determination of the liability.
Okay. All right, Dick, we're counting on you.
So whoever makes the motion will need to amend condition number 1 to just amend it to applicant providing right-of-way by easement prior to recordation would be what we'd ask for.
And also amend it to include the updated plat survey that was provided. Or they're going to update the plat survey so they get the 300 feet.
Yes, they've provided that drawing.
Yep.
We'll review it, make sure everything works. So then it was just those notes in the resolution itself, because that changes that acreage in the resolution.
Okay. And then the other item was the condition of approval requiring the engineer of the record, record on the plat survey the easements existing and proposed?
Those are now on this new drawing.
Okay, so that's taken care of.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so I guess we need a motion and a second. I'll see if there's any other questions or comments on
I'll make a
7E.
motion with all of the aforementioned amendments.
That's how I was going to do it
Oh, where
too.
those?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the plat of survey is approved and released. Item 7F, amendment to City Code Title III, Business and Licensing, Chapter 6, Massage Establishments and Technicians. Update the application requirements for a massage therapy business license. City initiated, this is an ordinance for the first reading, and based on a conversation with a couple of the licensed therapists in West Des Moines and our police department and our Public Safety Council Committee, there's a couple changes being recommended to our ordinance that everyone.
Considerations first reading.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
Go ahead.
All in favor, please say
Oh,
aye.
I was just going to say, you said it last time, I appreciate Police Chief taking a look at this and delving into it and working with the licensed massage therapists. You know, sometimes you pass an ordinance and you try to do the best you can to crack down and stop crime from happening and whatnot, but maybe sometimes you tighten down a little bit too much and you get some innocent people caught up in it and cause a little bit of a burden for them.
And we were a definite outlier, so this
Yeah,
was.
yeah. So this puts our code in line with some of the other codes across the metro, and it still cracks down on human trafficking significantly. So thank you, Chief, for working on this. Thanks to Councilwoman Hardman for taking this through public safety.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Ryan.
5 yes, an ordinance amending the city code of the city of West Des Moines, Iowa, 2019 by amending Title III Business, Chapter 6, Massage Establishments and Technicians, Section 5, License Applications regarding license application requirements.
Move approval first reading.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that item is approved. Item 7G, Excurry Club and Lounge LLC at 2700 University Avenue, Suite 200, Class LC liquor license renewal. The motion is denial of a liquor license application. Dick, you want to give us kind of the overview of the reasons?
Yes, sir. You might remember in September of 2018, Jorge Sanchez made application to get a liquor license for Excurry here in West Des Moines. At the time, he'd had 3 convictions for serving after hours and a couple of other issues, one of which was his failure to indicate that on his application. He had the reasoning that he was walking this through with personnel from AB, Alcohol and Beverage Division, and that it was an oversight on his part. After some conversation with Mr. Sanchez, it was determined he would be inappropriate to get a license, and that was in September. There was some work done with Maria Sanchez, who was Mr. Jorge's wife. She came back and made a separate application, and in October, the council considered that. Ms. Sanchez, after some conversations with the city clerk and the city legal department, indicated that she would be the sole operator and owner of the business, that she would do all the management activities of the business, and that she was totally responsible, and that Mr. Sanchez, who was somewhat questionable at the time as far as his reputation and some discomfort from the council, was only to provide the entertainment. It's up for renewal now. It was also indicated at that time, if it was found that Mr. Sanchez had any involvement in the operations or anything over and above providing for the entertainment, that would be consideration by the council for denial. It's now before the council. There's been several activities that have gone on. It seems to be pretty clear that Mr. Jorge Sanchez has been intimately involved in the operation of Excurry. You'll notice that Ms. Sanchez indicated that all the banking and financial activities would be carried on by her and directed by her back in 2018 when she was applying for this license. Since that time, it's been determined that Mr. Sanchez has a bank account that he makes payment on for the business operations of Excurry. Maria Sanchez, there doesn't seem to be any indication that she has a bank account or has any financial involvement. Since that time, The police department have asked under the state code to have consent provided by the owner so that they could check the regulations and do some regulatory inspections. They were denied to do that. The state has filed, ABD has filed charge against ex-Correa for inappropriate distancing, not following the governor's proclamation. That's pending at this time. It's also been determined that since 2018, Mr. Sanchez, or the bar itself, has failed to pay sales tax on about $125,000 of credit card transactions, and that is still pending. I should indicate that both Mr. and Mrs. Sanchez have been formally charged with 5 counts each of tax evasion and 1 count each, I believe, of fraudulent practices in the first degree, which is a Class D felony. Now, that's not been litigated, and they're, as you know, they have a right of a due process. However, there is probable cause to believe that that's occurred, and I think that can go towards the consideration of the council of the good reputation and financial wherewithal of both Maria Sanchez and Jorge Sanchez. So kind of in a very short synopsis, that's the basis at this time. It's the feeling of the staff and the recommendation to the council that Maria Sanchez has not complied with the recommendation or the requirements that were imposed upon her in 2018. Mr. Sanchez has been involved. It appears that there's been criminal activity, or at least there's probable cause to believe there's criminal activity at the resident at the bar. The police have not been able to inspect, as is their statutory right under the state code, and because of the governor's proclamation, which is, again, they have not exercised the full hearing process, but there is enough to believe that they're in violation of that. We don't feel that this would be a good applicant to receive a renewal of the liquor license.
Is there anyone here on behalf of Escarade that wants to address the city council? If you'll come up and share your name and your address.
Thank you. My name is Billy Mallory, 6701 Westtown Parkway, Suite 100. I'm an attorney with the Brick Law Firm here in West Des Moines. Here to address some of the statements and allegations that are made with regards to Escarade, the LLC. First of all, the company, the limited liability company, is owned solely by Maria. There's been an assertion or some mistaken assertions that she is not the owner of that entity, and I can verify with the Iowa Secretary of State and through the corporate records, she is the sole owner of that entity, and has been so since 2018. Secondly, with regards to the allegations of the inspection, first of all, we would state that there is a policy. If the police come, they are absolutely welcome in that establishment at any time, and they have, in fact, been inside of that establishment. And that is why there was an inspection. And like many bars, including one of the renewals that was issued tonight, I believe that the operators of those premises have received the same violation in a related company. When we're dealing with these COVID separation distance issues, everybody's been on a learning curve. And I've talked with the ABD, and there are a number of establishments that have been cited with this alleged violation. But they have received that citation, and we are addressing it, just like every other bar, including multiple bars in West Des Moines. We are addressing that with the Alcohol Beverages Division. With regards to the taxes, when Maria started her business, she had an opportunity to go out on her own and to start that business. Originally, this business was going to be ran by Jorge, her husband. A review of the Secretary of State records would indicate that, yes, he was the one who originally formed that business. When he was denied, she filed the application, she met with city staff and satisfied them that she was the individual who was going to be running this bar. And that is what's happening. Now, there's been some, as with any individual with English as a second language and trying to go out on your own and do a business, there has been a learning curve, absolutely. Has there been things that have been missed? Yes. Have we addressed every one of those? Yes. All of these issues with regards to the sales tax, every filing has been made. We have engaged and are dealing with a CPA out of Marshalltown. Every one of, and I have copies, every one of these sales tax, retailer's use tax, and surcharge returns have been filed. We are simply waiting at this point on, in time on the master billing to determine what is the amount of money that needs to be paid on those taxes, and that includes the local option sales tax. I have verified that the Form 8822, again, remember, Mr. Sanchez, he originally formed this entity. The entity was then transferred, including the EIN, to his wife. And so was his name originally affiliated with this entity? Yes, he formed it. But as we do in many instances, when we have a sale of a business, you can have an asset sale or you can have a sale of the business in the entirety. This was a sale of the business, a transfer of the business in the entirety to Maria. His name was originally affiliated with that EIN, and his name does appear in some records. Have we got that corrected? Yes. The Form 8822B has filed with the IRS. It has been filed with the IRS to establish that she is the only person, the responsible party for that entity for federal tax purposes. We have verified, and I have verified on the income tax returns. One of the big issues that we had early on was, is he going to be claiming profits? Is he going to be deriving the profits? What's going to happen with that from this business? And we see that from the original documentations and conversations with the city. If we look at the tax returns, it is very clear. She is 100% owner, and she is the only one that's claiming those profits. Now, she is still married, but the business is hers. It's being run by her and operated by her. Now, we received this notice about 1:30 on Friday, and so I apologize for being a little disjunctive on the presentation, and especially in light of the fact that although council had been engaged in all the sales tax materials had been submitted to the state, the West Des Moines Police Department did show up at 11:30 on Saturday night and arrested Miss Mendoza, handcuffed her and hauled her away for the sales tax issue, and kept her locked up all night with her husband. We believe that was, we hope that they didn't know that all the documents related to the sales tax had already been submitted to the state, because in fact they had been. But nonetheless, they did do that, which was unfortunate. We would note that when looking at these renewals, you look at whether or not we've got a history of violations. I quickly, as I was sitting in the back, looked at West Des Moines on the ABD complaints, and we see a history of violations, underage sales to alcohol, after-age sales, and I see this on individuals who are granted permits on a regular basis. Like I'd said about this social distancing, I believe that tonight that violation was dealt with and overlooked when we had an approved new license earlier tonight. So I think that the question is whether or not that's being addressed. Absolutely. And then we look at these tax issues. Are they being addressed? Absolutely. When we look at this allegation that all checks related to the business are being issued by Jorge, that's simply not true. And even a cursory analysis of the checking records would indicate that that's not true, but we don't believe that has been done. When we look at the bank account information that you have before you tonight, it's for an entity by the name of Ibiza Dance Club, LLC. That was a dance club that went out of business a few years ago in Marshalltown as a result of those tornadoes. Now, there is another business that is owned by Mr. Sanchez called I Caramba LLC. It's a restaurant out of Marshalltown. And if you look at some of the checks that are written, that are submitted here as being written for Eshkaret, the establishment in West Des Moines, you'll see that one has Marshalltown for the utility bills for Marshalltown. They've submitted to you tonight checks that are paying for I Caramba LLC and saying that those are bills that are being paid related to Eshkaret. That's not the case. Now, the issue on this banking account, again, we're in many instances, and it is something that I deal with on a regular basis, when you're looking at individuals who are not savvy on corporate formalities. In many instances, when clients come to me and they don't have or haven't observed the corporate formalities as well as they should, the first thing we do is get them in compliance, and we have done that. I can tell you that as to whether or not there is a bank account that is completely separated from with New IN, where her name is the only person that has ever been affiliated with that bank account, absolutely, because we've done it. We've made sure that that was done so that corporate formality can be observed. And so was there a learning curve on this? Yeah, there was, but that's nothing that I would believe should disqualify. And we would respectfully submit that that learning curve is something that is normal in the process for someone who is 32 years old and trying to start their own business on their own for the first time. With regards to the criteria, we would respectfully submit that we find those at Iowa Administrative Code, Chapter 185, subsection 4.2, sub 4. When we look at the financial standing, we look at support and adequate operating capital. This entity has been in existence. This liquor license has been reviewed and renewed by this council once prior to this request. They have been operating, and we would note that prior to this issue with regards to the COVID separation, there had been no violations that they were cited for. This isn't where we're seeing underage drinking. We're not seeing after-hour sales. It's not occurring. She runs a good business. When we look at the payment of local or state taxes due, record of prompt payment for fees and charges by the local authority for utilities and municipal services. The payments for the utilities and services, those have been made. All fees and charges have been made to the local authority. The issue with regards to the local and state taxes, obviously, I've informed you that the documents have been submitted and we are waiting on the master billing from the Department of Revenue. At that point in time, we look to what is the good reputation. And some of the factors that we look to under 185 4.2 paren 4 paren B, we look at a pattern and practice of sales of alcoholic beverages to 19 and 20-year-olds. Obviously, she's never done it. It's not even the allegation. We look at whether or not she has pled or been found guilty of these criminal activities. No, she has not. Now, there's the allegation with regards to this tax evasion on the sales tax permits. We believe that once that either gets to the preliminary hearing, when we show the courts that, yeah, the applications had been filed. Should they have been filed sooner? Yes. But they were filed well before the time that that she was arrested. Has she been selling alcohol to intoxicated persons? The answer is no. Has she been convicted of laws related to OWI? No. Then we look at the recency of the convictions, which they don't exist. We look at the criteria that's set for the Administrative Code 185, which are the criteria which the local authority, here the city, may consider. We would respectfully submit that, yes, there were some hiccups, but it is clear from a legal review of the documents and the submittals that this is being operated by Ms. Maria Mendoza. She is the sole person that is receiving the profits. The tax records indicate that, and there's been no dispute of the IRS filings. And we would respectfully submit that the history showing a lack of violations up until the point where we have this social distancing violation. We would respectfully submit that history would establish that she's running a good establishment, and we would respectfully submit that the liquor license should be renewed. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And Dick, before I ask if you've got any comments, I don't know, Chief Scott, if there's anything you want to add to the conversation? You don't have to, but I didn't want to exclude you in case, okay, Dick? Okay, Dick, anything else
I
you
just
want
had
to
a
add?
couple, Mr. Mallory, Ms. Mendoza has a bank account now. When did she obtain that bank account?
That bank account was obtained within the last few days when we realized that there had been a lax adherence to the corporate formalities and the confusion related to the EIN transfers of the entities. My direction was, she's got a good team. She really does. At this point in time, the accountant she's dealing with is top-notch, and we've been working nonstop to get into compliance and ensure compliance. But the bank account was established here recently once I was able to obtain the 8822B, which is the IRS documentation related to ensuring that the EIN had been transferred to Ms. Mendoza with the IRS.
When did you find out, or when did she find out that this was going to be on our agenda to deny the permit?
Friday at 1:23, I believe, is the email we received from Ryan. I can pull it up, but I think it was right at like 1:21.
And so a few days ago, could have been Friday that she got the bank account then.
today's the 19th? Mm-hmm. 19th. No, it's the 15th. So it was before that.
She knew it was on the agenda. She
knew.
didn't know it was a denial, right?
Yeah, we did not. We had no reason to believe that there would be a denial.
Why would it take 2 years to get a bank account? And why would there be no taxes paid until the last minute? Oh, hell, we're going to be under scrutiny, so we're going to get these papers filed. In my heart, 2 years ago, I was quite certain we'd be sitting here today doing this. I wasn't comfortable doing it then. I can't prove it, but I knew, I felt it, that that's what was going to happen.
Kevin, let's let Dick finish his questions, and then I'll see if the council has others.
I just wanted to point out, Ms. Mendoza, Mr. Mallory, you realize that the council had great discomfort with Mr. Sanchez getting an application and a license for this, so we worked with Ms. Mendoza. In fact, city clerk and I sat down with Ms. Mendoza between the time of the application from Mr. Jorge Sanchez. One of the questions asked was about her independence and if she would actually run the operation. And here's an answer that she gave. I will have a bank account for all profits or revenues derived from X-Parade Club and Lounge LLC under my name, and I will be the only one person under the bank account. Also will be the only one doing payroll, and I will be the only one receiving profits. She said that before she was granted the license in October of 2018. So you're saying last week she finally got a bank account?
Yeah, the bank account issue was resolved last week. The profits that have been from day one, the profits have been going to her. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the statement, and I will have a bank account for all profits or revenues. All the profits have been going to her. Should it have been done sooner? Absolutely. But we are also, if you look at all the comments and the wording on this, we're not dealing with an individual that appears to be very sophisticated in the rule of law and the operation of business. It was also known at that point in time that this is a new venture for her, coming to West Des Moines and doing this. So,
But there is
could
an
it have
old
been
adage
done
that
better? Absolutely.
Ignorance of the law is no excuse, and she's in the business, so she held to a certain standard.
And that's why as we sit here today, we believe that she's in 100% compliance with the law. And I don't know if anybody is able to point to one provision of the law that she's not in compliance with.
Well, here's one. How about sales tax? You were talking about her sales tax submissions. 2018, she started operating this bar. When did she start making those sales tax submissions?
The sales tax submissions have been made in the last couple of weeks. As soon as we realized what needed to happen, it was done.
You realized she was needing to do that because you were well aware of the ABD and the county attorney's investigation of her potential or alleged sales tax evasion. I mean, that would obviously.
I had no knowledge. Since I've been involved in this, I got a call Saturday night at 11:30 at my house, shocked that sales tax issued, they were getting arrested on a sales tax permit and hauled to jail with a 6 and an 8-year-old at home. I was absolutely shocked, and I had no knowledge of that, and I'd been involved in this for over a week.
You have no knowledge that she was being investigated for sales tax evasion prior to that
Absolutely
time?
not.
But that doesn't mean that she wasn't, right? So,
Yeah, nobody, sales tax had never even came into play as an alleged violation. When we looked at this, we said, this has to be done. And without fail, when we look at whether or not this individual is willing to comply, when I met with her, we said, this is what needs to have happen. And instantaneously, she was working with me. She obtained an accountant. We worked through legal, and we got it done. It's not a question as to whether or not she's willing to do it. I've been working with her and doing it. It's a question as to whether or not she should have known it previously. And it would have been great to know it previously.
let me ask you this. In 2018, when Mr. Sanchez came in, he said the reason that they were leaving the bar business, if you will, in Marshalltown was because of the tornado. And so they were going to, the tornado that went through. And so they were going to come here and establish this business. That was really couldn't get the permit. So are you saying that there's no conflict whatsoever between Mr. Sanchez, who's been operating a bar and had these obligations, and Ms. Sanchez, who is now operating for 2 years without paying taxes?
Well, the city had requested that she do this on her own, and so, yeah, my understanding is that his involvement has been limited. And the reason for that is that was a requirement of the city, is that they don't want him doing all of this stuff.
They're still married, right?
Yeah, they're married. Absolutely, they're married.
And just one other thing, on the inspection, are you denying that she refused permission to enter the establishment as required by law, or are you saying there was some reason why she didn't allow that in?
I'm denying that she just told anybody they can't come in. Apparently there was somebody at the front door who had inquired with the police as to the rationale as to why they were there at one point in time. That individual is no longer with the business, but there is no policy that says they can't come in. Everybody knows under 123 when the police come to the door. Every applicant knows if the police come to the door, they show proper identification and they come in.
So you're saying nobody actually came, the allegation is untrue that anybody even tried to get in? Is that
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that Ms. Mendoza has never refused anybody access.
But the bar has.
Can we make it clear? Maybe she didn't,
But the
but
bar
perhaps an employee did. Are you saying that an officer presented him or herself at the facility and that didn't happen, or that it did happen and somebody else denied access?
I have been presented with no evidence that anybody was ever denied. I know that this allegation, and when we look at the allegations from the city of West Des Moines, that was the one that was odd for me because it doesn't give me a name. It just says Eshkare refused entry. And I'm trying to figure out who this was. If there was somebody out there that refused entry, that person was wrong.
But you just said that person was let go.
There's been an assertion that
Even if
this
they
may
go-
have been the person. That the front door security, absolutely, and that person's no longer there. The police, if they want to come, they're absolutely welcome. My understanding is they've been there, and they've even been offered water and or Coca-Cola when they walk through.
Yeah, Jessica moved up a little farther. Is there anything you want to add, Jessica, since your name's on this as well?
I just don't know if I can add some clarification to some of the allegations. I did put together the report, and I have been in probably the most contact with the Iowa ABD, which is the agency that has been, I do have to commend them. They've worked greatly with both the police department and myself on not only this business, but in all of our liquor licensed establishments. There's been an allegation regarding the checks that were included as an exhibit. Those checks were included based on information received from the city, from ABD. The Square account, everybody know what that is? That account is, and my fault if I failed to provide this information in there. the ABD provided so much information to us that I didn't want to overwhelm the city council, but that square count is for the years of 2018 and 2019, which are the 2 years leading up to this year, for this establishment are solely in the name of Jorge Sanchez. Then you can connect that square account. That square account goes directly into that Great Western Bank account that is only in Jorge's name. I understand Mr. Mallory is claiming that that's named under Ibiza. Obviously, he may run some accounting through that account, but that square account is directly associated with the Great Western Bank account that is provided as an exhibit for the city council today. As to the allegations that Ms. Mendoza did not have any, I guess, upfront knowledge or I guess warning about any of this happening, ABD investigators met with Ms. Mendoza and her previous attorney in person on September 29th of 2020, where there were specific questions given regarding a lot of the items that are being discussed tonight. I believe Mr. Mallory has been recently retained from Ms. Mendoza. And as he stated, I did confirm with the Iowa Department of Revenue, no sales tax permit was even pulled until October 8th of 2020. So that was information that I obtained. I didn't necessarily, I did it for the purposes purely of the staff report. So, and confirmation with the Iowa ABD. So if that clarifies some of the matters that were provided in the report. Does any
Jessica,
council have any questions?
Yeah, do you have the date or any other information on when they denied the police department entry into the building?
Yes. It appears, and there's no report. This was Sergeant McCarty and the Entertainment Response Unit is my understanding. Is that correct, Chief? That was the unit that responded. It appears that occurred on June 11th, 2020. The only information that I have is that the parking lot was very full and they attempted to get in. I do recall shortly after, Sergeant McCarty actually called me to discuss the police department's authority to enter and do inspections. And so we talked through that and I put him into contact with the ABD as well.
Jesse, you talked about the Square account.
Yes.
Is there a Square account, any other Square account for XRA?
I have to admit, I didn't personally do a lot of the research. I do.
But ABD did not find one.
ABD did not find one.
Okay, but it's pretty obvious that they would take credit cards.
So I appreciate the presentation. And Mr. Mallory, I appreciate the items you walked through and certainly sympathetic to cause of having to close a business, or I should say lose a license. I don't know what that means for the business, but at the same time, given the history, seems like the Ms. Mendoza knew, or at least should have known, given the history, that alcohol licenses and alcohol in general is highly regulated, and saw what happened previously if certain requirements were not met. And I pulled up the administrative code you cited there, 185 4.2 sub 4, talks about financial standing. And one of the things you consider under that provision that you referenced is a record of prompt payment of local and state taxes. We don't have a record of prompt payment here. I also see that it talks about good reputation. A lot of different things in there that are listed that you walk through. But it also says including but not limited to those things. And we heard a lot, I guess, from Dick about certain reputational characteristics that cause me concern. So for example, a sworn statement that we have from a couple years ago that appears to be contradicted by other evidence we've heard tonight about who was or wasn't going to be involved in the finances of the organization. We heard about an officer being denied access to the facility back in June. We have the most recent issue with not complying with the governor's orders. And we had a lady here earlier tonight by the name of Jan Fleming concerned about these sorts of situations. And I appreciate what you're saying in terms of your client may not have that level of sophistication to take on some of these things and comply with the corporate requirements. But when you're in a highly regulated industry, I believe you have to be able to comply with these things, particularly when you're serving alcohol to residents of our community. So I have a lot of heartburn about this, and clearly, if law enforcement is not going to be allowed to enter a business to ensure compliance, I have again a lot of heartburn on granting the license.
I agree. May I comment?
Sure.
I absolutely agree, and that's one of the things that was concerning to me is that because it is a regulated entity and it is a regulated industry, very regulated, and that was one of the things that stuck out to me was somebody denied entry, and when Ms. Bowden had said, well, after that incident, there was a confusion. There was a call from the chief saying, what is the authority? And so, as I sit here today, I don't know what happened at that door. I don't know if it was, hey, why are you here? And they left and said, well, what's our authority? What is our ability to go in? But I can tell you this, there is the absolute policy to say if they come to the door, they come in.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Mallory, I think the thing that troubles me is this liquor license was reluctantly granted in 2018. I think your client should have gotten the message back then. You better dot every I and cross every T because we're really having a hard time giving you this license in 2018. That's what troubles me. They should have very well known that this was really troublesome to grant it in the first place, and why they would wait 2 years to do some of the basic rudimentary requirements of their business is beyond me based on the conversation we had at the time. In fact, I thought it was going to get denied then, and I think the council went above and beyond to give her an opportunity to run this business. So I'm really surprised that some of the basic things that you've talked about tonight that have been done within the last month should have been done within a week after this was granted in 2018, because it was no secret to them that this was really troublesome to this council to even give it back in 2018. That's what bothers me.
Yeah, I would just add to what the mayor said. And Councilman Trevilian as well. I remember him coming in and asking, for this liquor license, and we were ready to deny it. And really, I'm not even sure that we had a choice, because I'm not sure he was able to have that liquor license under state law. That's what the issue was. And then all of a sudden they came in and said, yeah, I'm not going to be the one doing it. It's going to be my wife. She's going to run the business. I think we were all kind of leery at that time. It didn't seem plausible. It seemed like it was, hey, you do this, and then when we get out of here, don't worry about it, I'll run it. So I too had reservation back then about how this was going to go. And now here we are, and ignorance of the law is no excuse. And, there seem to be a number of issues here where, she's violated something she said she would adhere to, and that's not good moral character. So I am having trouble with this. I'm not sure you're painting her as maybe not sophisticated enough to be able to understand what's going on here. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. So I too am having trouble with not denying this tonight.
Renee?
I appreciate, Mr. Mallory, that you are here advocating on behalf of your client. And, I've been circling and rereading and trying to understand, all that she's up against as it relates to this license. And I do remember the angst that occurred, several years ago. I remember that. Aside from the police not getting in, there was no report of that. So even aside from all of that, that's probably not what is the driving factor for me. It's really trying to understand just here recently, within almost just a week and a half, we've got the financials in order to show that she, in fact, is the owner of the business, because everything up until just recently has not demonstrated that. So that causes a bit of angst for me as well. You know, granting a liquor license is not a casual affair. It's really kind of a serious vote that we make in terms of granting someone the authority to sell liquor, and there are certain things that a person attests to by their written statements and whatnot. So it's unfortunate that for so long, those things have not taken place. And the urgency of things taking place now is likely because of the vote that's upon us today. I do have one question, and Dick, you might be able to help me. For all those others that we approve for liquor license, do we do any exhaustive search on sales tax or delinquent sales tax or any of that? Or, I mean, is that a part of our vetting process?
Yeah, we go through that. I mean, we're usually notified by ABD or somebody else if they haven't submitted sales tax. So we do a pretty thorough background check, make sure that everything they provide is consistent with the records that we have. But you know, we don't dive in real deeply because usually they're in compliance and we get notified from ABD if there is an issue, or the police department usually lets us know that this is a problem facility or an establishment. So yeah, it's fairly thorough. It's as thorough as any other city does, that's for sure. And so, you know, a lot of them, as Mr. Mallory pointed out, there are hiccups along the way where they don't comply completely, but it never rises to the level of being of good moral character or financial stability or good standing. So when those that do come to the top, and we recognize that, that's the ones we recommend for denial.
May I respond? One of the issues there, when I was looking at this, when I got involved, was that the city does do a very thorough job. And when the issue or the comment is made that she should have known, this individual, this analysis was made. The city has looked at this at the first renewal and issued that renewal. And one of the issues there is, would the city have issued it if she was under the belief that she wasn't doing things correctly? Well, the city did look at this last year with all of these things going on, with the exception of the COVID separation, and it was overlooked, even as part of that thorough review, because the renewal was issued. And the events that we're talking about here predated that. And so I understand ignorance is not, and I'm not here advocating that ignorance of the law should somehow justify this. And I'm not saying that what has happened in the past was correct at the time. All I'm saying is that it has been corrected, and we were here a year ago, or at least this council was here a year ago, took a look at everything. All of these situations were in place with the exception of the COVID, and it was approved. So to say, well, she should have known, with a misguided assumption that things were looked at and everything was going okay, I think that may have, we may have been or lulled into a false sense of knowing what was going on.
So are you saying that there was a renewal granted with the undesirable circumstances still in place at that time?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so given that, there was no reason to believe that there was any issues? Are we saying that, or what are you saying?
Had I been involved at that time, obviously we would have seen the issues and we would have got them corrected at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't involved, and the application for renewal was made, and all of these conditions were in existence at that time. The application was submitted and the application was approved last year.
Yeah.
So all of the conditions that we find ourselves on today that have been corrected today were in existence last year and had not been corrected.
Okay.
And last year, the renewal had been, was issued.
And Dick, how do you respond to that? I think, you know, as sitting here, we're trying to be fair. We're trying to listen to all sides. We really are. And how do we address that? Because to me, it's an interesting point being raised here.
Mayor, Council, City Manager, Chris Scott, Chief of Police. A year ago, this happens when we get an annual renewal. We don't dive into any tax issues that recently have been charged. We look at what's the arrest record, what's the trip load, what's the history at the establishment. Is there any disqualifiers based on code? And the answer to that for this last renewal was no, none that we're aware of. When it comes down to what's happening now and the charges that have taken place, the tax part of this was a conversation and a collaborative investigation after notification by the ABD, which is into this period when she has her license. So how did she get a license last year? We had no knowledge of anything at that particular time that would suggest that she should not have a license. However, since that time, things became known through advisal of the ABD, who we've worked with, and through the ABD, who did, if you're not aware of this, they do not have law enforcement powers. And so ultimately, they came to our department. It's in our jurisdiction. We work with them, and we filed those charges on the business. Does that answer your question?
Well, it gives additional information. And please know, two wrongs don't make a right. So I am not a belief that two wrongs make a right. And that if that was overlooked at the last renewal, I don't want to say just because that was done, then this should be approved. So I want to make sure of that. But I did want to hear a little bit more about the renewal was approved and the circumstances were the same a year ago.
And that's where I would tell you, from my perspective, the circumstances, the information we did on our background check were not the same as the circumstances that we have today.
Yeah.
Okay? We didn't have any arrest record charges. We didn't have the ABD issues, excuse me, that we're talking about today. We look at her arrest record, what was the trip load, what are there violations under age, those types of things, and there was nothing in place at that time. Over the last few months, after notification by the ABD, that's when we started to work with them jointly, and that's where we are today with a recommendation to deny this.
But I guess I heard that the tax issue has been going on for several years. Is that not correct?
So under our investigation of a background check, the answer to that is we didn't have knowledge of that. We were advised of that through the ABD, but not until this license period. If we would have known that before, then we would have had that discussion. Maybe the recommendation would have been different a year ago, but we didn't have that information.
How do we know we don't have that information on ones that we're approving today and that we approve every city council meeting?
Well, we don't actually. I mean, it takes some time. First you have to not report your sales tax for a period of time before the ABD even becomes aware of it and starts the investigation. So to your point, you're right. I mean, there could be
overlap,
violating license holders right now that we're unaware of, but we will eventually become aware of that. So I think it's a little disingenuous to say, well, we got away with it, or you didn't point it out to us, so we should get this license again. That's Ms. Sanchez. She was supposed to have a bank account, early on. I mean, she came in and under oath said, yes, I'll have a bank account in my name. We don't do such an investigation as to go and to see if, in fact, she has an independent bank account, but through this investigation, we determined she's not in compliance with that as well. So, you can say all kinds of things, but it's not the city's responsibility to tell her how to run her bar. And if we don't tell her that, somehow she gets a pass. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and I would just say too, I mean, you were here a couple years ago when your husband was trying to get the liquor license, and we all were very leery at the time. And I think we even said to you, please make sure you dot all your I's and cross all your T's. I mean, I'd love to go back and take a look at the tape. But, I think you were made very aware that we're very leery of this because it seemed like your husband was applying to run the business, that he's always run these businesses, and that we couldn't grant him a liquor license, even if we wanted to. He wasn't eligible under the law to receive a liquor license. And so all of a sudden, you guys come in and say, he says, my wife is going to run the business. I'm going to have nothing to do with the business. We have all these stipulations set up to make sure that that is the case. And I guess I have a question for your attorney, and that is, so did her husband write any of the checks? The checks that we have in here, you're saying that none of those checks were paying bills or anything that had to do with ex-Carre?
That's not what I.
That's what I'm
implied.
asking you.
No.
That's what I'm
was-
asking you.
The statement that I had been referring to was a statement in the report from the city that says that she's never written any checks for this business. That's not true.
Okay, so let me ask you then. Let me ask you.
Yes.
Has her husband written checks to pay bills from ex-Carre?
Yes.
Yes, he has.
Yes, he has.
Okay.
And when I looked.
How did those checks get cashed? I mean, I can't write a check for ex-Carre.
The thing about this bank account is there is the entity of iCaramba. It has used that, his restaurant in Marshalltown. And it's the LLC, it's a hard concept for me to understand because from a legal standpoint, it doesn't make sense. But it was a business account and he was using it for business.
Sure, but all businesses.
It was
So we
originally
paid the
was
bills for ex-Carre.
It was originally through the Ibiza account.
How do you explain the square, the credit card reader?
The credit card reader went into
His bank account.
the Ibiza account that was under the name of that's the EIN of Ibiza, which is an LLC that is no longer active. It was administratively dissolved years ago. And I frankly.
But the money's going into that account.
Looking at Great Western Bank, I was trying to figure out how that bank account was in existence for under Ibiza with an EIN for an entity that has been dissolved.
So they're playing a shell game.
I wouldn't say a shell game.
I would.
But that's what it's looking like, is that they left here 2 years ago, agreeing to all these things, and then once they got out of here, then they did the old switcheroo. The husband continued to run the business, sign the checks, and do all the different things. And that's exactly what we worried about in approving the license in the first place, because he's not allowed to have a liquor license under Iowa law.
Vic, what's the process, if this is denied, what's the process does she have to wait a year to come back in and request a license again in a year? What's the process if they want to try to get their license back if it's denied?
He has a right of appeal to the state who can overrule any decisions that this council makes.
So we would submit to the state if she appeals it all the information we've got. Now, if the state upholds it, is there a process after a period of time that a business can come back through here for an application? Do they have to wait a certain period of time?
No, Your Honor, I don't really know.
Okay.
Is there any probationary license or anything like that ABD or the city could grant? I mean, is it an all or none?
It's an all or none. These used to be kind of perfunctory along the way, and the state took total control. They've delegated or they've allowed some discretion, greater discretion to the council, but they still maintain the ultimate decision. And so if they can overcome our rejection, if you will, or denial, then they can go ahead and operate with a license.
So it would be the state Iowa Alcohol and Beverage Division that would hear her appeal if her application is denied
It goes to
tonight.
administrative law judge, and then
Okay.
that's the decision.
All right, any other questions? And I'm going to ask for a motion. Someone want to make a motion?
I'm going to move that we deny it.
For a second.
Second.
Any other questions or comments?
Really quick, Dick. So do we have any precedent of denial, whether those appeals usually succeed or are denied at the state level? I mean, it doesn't happen that often.
We've had a
but-
mixed bag. Actually, it used to be that the cities would, you might remember some time ago, Preston Daniels, when he was a mayor, he kind of called into question the ability of the city to actually have any teeth in this process. And so that's always been a little bit questionable about why do they even go through the city. But to your question, we've had some where we've denied them and they've been overruled at the state level. However, we've also had some where we've granted that and it was denied at the state level, on appeal. Where they they take it up on their own sort of sponte, if you will, where they just take it and say, no, this gentleman had a lot of convictions and we thought maybe he'd been rehabilitated, but the state took it and said, no, we're going to overrule the approval. So we've had both ways.
If we have a denial tonight, Mr. Mallory has been indicating that the things are now in order. That's what Mr. Mallory has been indicating. The state has the opportunity to look at all those things and make the call.
Right, and it would certainly behoove them, if they do all things in order, to go to the ABD and the Attorney General or the county attorney and say, hey, here, we have 11 charges pending against us, or 5 each, fraudulent practice and 5 tax evasions. I would certainly think that might go a long way if the criminal authorities determine that, yeah, this was just a big misunderstanding, and so we're going to dismiss this. That would certainly help in their appeal to the state.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, all in favor of the motion to deny the liquor license, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the license is denied. Item 8, we don't have any items to receive, file, and/or refer. Item 9, other matters. Are there any other matters any council member wants to raise tonight? Okay. If not, we don't have an executive session. We don't have workshops. We're adjourned.